By the end of this video, you're going to know that you're going to record an album in the next 2 weeks, maybe even a week. Give me a few minutes, I'll make you believe, alright? It's been too long, my friend. We put it off no longer. Today's the day we start. Hello, I'm Chris. I'm a guitar teacher from the north of England, Newcastle to be precise. I'm in a pretty good mood right now, if you know, you know. This week I'm going to be making an instrumental guitar album. I'm only giving myself a week to do it. I'm going to talk you through the process of how I'm going to do it, but mainly this video is about how you're going to do it. I'm only telling you my way, so it may lead you into thinking about things slightly differently than you may have done before. We're going to give you a solid plan that you're not going to be able to argue with. If you do argue with it, well, you're wasting your own time. The main thing is we're going to give you some restrictions that you are going to love. Inspiration is for amateurs. Really, really great sentence that got me through a lot of professional photography and composing gigs. Restrictions are what we need. We need to turn up and be able to work. Quite often writer's block, you may say, you know, I've had writer's block for the past 2,000 years. Writer's block is often not no ideas, it's too many ideas. We need to be restricted. The restrictions for me are the thing that have led to the most prolific periods of my life. The last album recorded actually a few years ago. I've been working more on small pieces for YouTube recently, but the last full album that I released, I just locked myself in a room and in one day I did a few takes of each tune that weren't written beforehand, and I produced something that I'm very proud of. If I had have sat with those tunes for a long period of time, trying to brush them up, trying to rework them, it never would have got released. And it's not going to blow any minds, but it was a learning experience. And we're just trying to learn here. We are not trying to create a masterpiece. Get that into your mind. We don't know what our own masterpiece is just yet, so we can't create it. We may accidentally come up with it, but we can't plan to make a masterpiece. You don't meet the love of your life. You meet a person on a date and they become the love of your life. Look at things from this different perspective. So why would you actually want to do this? Well, for me, I get confused about what my voice is sometimes. We're doing a lot of things, you know, I'm uploading to YouTube, I'm living my life. Sometimes we can only work out what our own voice is by hearing it. This pressure and restriction on ourselves strips everything. You're going to have to make compromises in it. You're going to have to strip everything down to its very basics. I hate to get spiritual about it, but then you can hear your own voice for what it really is. What you produce in the foxhole when your back's against the wall. So, the sanctions that I impose upon myself to make sure that I can be rather prolific, I write down a manifesto. It takes me generally about a day or two to do so. There's been times where I haven't went through on it, by the way, and I really think I should have went through on it. I've got sidetracked, so I'm very, very aware that being sidetracked is something that may happen, but I've written into this manifesto, take note, ways that I can stop that from happening. Recording it here is a very good way of that happening too. So I'm going to go over what my manifesto is. It gives me restrictions, so I can only work in a particular way. And it gets me to work in a particular way, a restricted way where I'm almost forced to be creative. We're not relying on inspiration. We've got a plan. But the plan allows for organic creation, and it's simple. At the end of this, I'm going to give you your own plan, but you can take anything from what I've said today and apply it to your own method. See if it works for you. If you're here, maybe you're having some trouble writing, let's get past that, okay? We'll break through that writer's block. So, Album Manifesto, timescale, 1 week. I know I can produce an album in 1 week. I've done it before. If I give myself 2 weeks, I'm starting to cut close to the time where I might give up on it and get distracted. I can only give myself 1 week. I've learnt that about myself. Gear. I'm currently using my Marshall amp, so I'm going to use that. I'm currently using a particularly small pedal board. I'm going to use that. Jaguar, Fender Jaguar. I was using my 2004 Telecaster last week, but on recordings, I don't like the sound of it so much. It sounds better in the room. Jaguar is very good for recording. I use it for most of my YouTube videos. Comfortable with how it sounds. I'm going to use that. Very important, I'm going to change the strings today, and unless they break, I'm not changing them again, because it's little details like that we obsess about. You know, you see people in forums asking, how often do you change your strings? You know that's almost an excuse not to write music. Don't think about little details like that. Actually, because this is a learning experience, I toyed with this. Am I going to use a looper? Am I not? It's going to be solo guitar, which I'll get onto. I am going to use a looper because I'm going to at least try to use it, because I don't use loopers very often. And it's something that I kind of want to get into. I think it's very hard to use them tastefully. I like the way that John Scofield uses a looper on his, it was 2 albums ago, I think, his self-titled album. There's very few times that I like a looper, but I'm going to try and get it on the go. Roy Montgomery uses loops in his work. Frippinino used quite 20-second loops to do the whole Frippatronics thing. Maybe we can get that on the go. I'm going to allow it. I'm going to take the risk on it, in fact, because it's something that I don't usually do. I'm going to shoot for 2 tracks per tune. So two guitars, or a bass and a guitar. It's mainly going to be one instrument though. I say bass, I'm going to try and only use the guitar. Okay, so we could have 2 guitars, one guitar and one guitar playing chords, one playing lead, one doing texture or something like that. But 2, I'm shooting for. I'm going to allow myself to go to 4. Be pragmatic. Don't be dogmatic. Don't, you're making these rules for yourself. You're not making yourself for the rules. Now, I've got to remember that we're not creating mixes, we're creating songs, right? I can't get too hung up on how I'm going to mix this. I'm writing in that I can't think about that, right? We're making songs, we're not making mixes. We should be able to define the theme of the album in a sentence. I think it was Einstein, I'm totally not sure, that said, if you understand a subject, you should be able to summarize it very quickly, which is actually why I think that shorts are sometimes better than long form videos for getting to the point, although I'm laboring a point here. To define this album in a sentence, and I think you should really do this. Ambient shoegaze solo guitar music. Solo guitar music is a phrase that I'm kind of obsessed with at the moment. I think that guitar music has threatened to be its own genre a few times in history. It's going to be shoegaze based, but people should tell me that it's not shoegaze. It should kind of because if I try to stick too close to a genre, you get problems doing that. If you find yourself researching, what I really want it to be, this genre, like is it Limp Bizkit black metal? You start getting into a very strange place there, don't you? I'm very obsessed with the fact that there's not many really great solo guitar albums that are just solo guitar. John Martin did some, Bert Jansk, Nick Drake. Pink Moon is a lovely solo guitar album, although one track does have a piano on it, which is fine. We're being pragmatic. Myland by Ariel Posen, I really love. Sarah Lipstate as Novella, I love her solo guitar stuff. Virtuoso by Joe Pass, one of the greatest albums ever recorded, if you ask me. Pretty much done on a whim. They just got Joe Pass in, he played a few standards, and that was it. But when you listen to that album, yeah, my gosh, just went in, sat down, banged it out, done one. So I've written, be pragmatic. If something isn't working, or adding something could help, change it. Restrictions aren't for you. Sorry, aren't for the project. Like, the restrictions are for you. You aren't for the restrictions. I'm going to try and do 1 tune a day. Sometimes I get into a bit of momentum where I might produce 3 or 4 tunes a day. I'm not going to have a hard barrier of whether I want to do 7 songs, right? The minimum I'd like to do is 3, the maximum is 12. But if it's 15, 15 is quite unrealistic. Right, I've got to start the Bandcamp, because I don't really have a Bandcamp for this project, but I want to get one up. I want to get one working so, I can get that up and downloadable. Ultimate dream goal. It's good to have a dream. I've said goals and ultimate dream goal, but goals and dreams are distinct things. You should have a goal, but you should also have a separate dream. Because dream is shooting for the stars. You might not get there. Well, in my case, I'm certainly not going to get there. Well, I should believe in myself a little bit more. Ultimate dream. Shoegaze version of Virtuoso by Joe Pass. Wow. I wrote that yesterday. Know your weaknesses. My weaknesses are that I'm terrible at mixing. Solo guitar works well for me. I abandon projects if I get other ideas. So, one way I'm mitigating that is by doing this and doing it very quickly. If I start listening to jazz or blues records, I'll want to do a jazz or blues project. I was listening to Dr. Feelgood this morning and I was like, it would be really good to do a pub rock covers band, and then I've got to pull myself out of it. I'm only going to listen to the music of Roy Montgomery, Frippin' Eno, Sarah Lipstate, and Windy and Carl. Because that's along the lines of what I wanted it to sound like, and I can't let myself get sidetracked. I really can't. What the forms of the song's going to be, it's important. I've got a lot of... I'm pretty good at just writing on a whim tunes, but I'm going to allow myself to use some old tunes from small pieces that I did for YouTube, because I think there's quite a scope for development there. Idea you've already got is one way to save a lot of time too. One important thing is I've got to walk 1,500 steps a day, and I've got to weight train 4 times a week. Leonardo da Vinci was a very, very strong man. He could bend horseshoes, apparently. He understood the connection between strong mind, strong body. Walking is one of the most creative things that I do. We're really obsessed with short-term goals. We really are. If you stop doing things like exercise, it can really affect, and I know that it really affects my creative process, so I've got to keep that in. I can't become a hermit for a week. It just won't work. You've got to see how this exercise, because I've done this before, see how it, I'm using previous lessons to add to this manifesto, so get better at it. It's part of getting better at songwriting and album writing. What about you? What's your... Right, I'm going to get it done. By the way, you can look at the equipment that I'm using. There's links in the description. Give it a like and a subscribe while you're down there. I will be updating on this, so it'd be good to subscribe. For me, it would be good for you to subscribe too, and I appreciate it. Let's have a look at some ideas for you, okay? Okay, I'm going to give you a few options, keeping it very, very simple. If you've only came to this part of the video, that's totally fine. So you've got the choice between, and you can't change this, don't work on it, you'll end up doing nothing. Single instrument, 2 instruments, 4 tracks, just like the old cassette days. Now that includes if you're double tracking something, so be really careful about that. If you're double tracking guitars, that's two tracks already used up. Be creative. This makes you be creative. You're a creative person, right? Okay. You can choose either 1 week or 2 weeks. Be honest with yourself. Can you do it in 1 week? Right? I know you can do it in 2 weeks. Might have to be an EP, it might have to be shorter form, but you get it finished. You'll have something by the end of it, which is a beautiful thing. You've got to make at least 3 tracks. You've got to make at least 3 tunes. No singles. We're not talking about making one song here. This isn't a songwriting exercise. It's got to be a body of work. It can be an album. It can be a soundscape, I suppose, that lasts half an hour. I suppose we'll class that as an album, all right? You can get away with that. You have to release it at completion, whether it be Bandcamp, for digital download, by the way, or the equivalent music platform or social media. Don't get into the situation like put it on YouTube or something so people can see it. Don't get into the situation where you start having to plan out releases, physical releases or something. That gets into a much larger project. We're just doing something that you can be proud of. If it takes off, then you can start planning on making it a physical release afterwards. Maybe you write in a completely different way, but can you do this? At least have a try. Your first task, though, is to write in the comments, because although it is good for me when you write in the comments, of course, but it does commit to, and it does show that you've got a clear vision. Write what your initial paragraph is for just what this album's going to be. Look, if we all do this, it gives it more significance. I really do believe that if we all put it out into the world, even making the comments, certainly releasing it, we'll get something moving here. I'm not trying to start a movement, but we get some movement as individuals working together as a group. But make no mistake about it, this is for you. Don't work on this for longer than 2 weeks. If you put it and say, oh, well, I'm just going to polish it, you could polish it forever. That's just not the nature of this exercise, and it is an exercise. We'll want to be learning something while creating. If we think about it too much, we'll get distracted, it'll get away from us. Thanks so much to Patreons. By the way, you make this channel run. You really do. I'd love that you're here. But, if you want to join the Patreon, you can. You'll get updates on this project. You support the arts. You make me very happy, which is a great superpower to have. But your likes, subscribes, and certainly shares are totally valued very, very highly by me. I appreciate your company. If you're thinking, well, how do I even start thinking about chord progressions and stuff like that? Check out one of these videos for inspiration. Generally, they're about shoegaze alt rock, but you could use them for any form of music.